Oh, this is gonna be crazy.
Okay, destroy the building.
Alright, hello everyone and welcome today to another episode of SpraynPray1000's Verdict. Although it would be better if I said welcome tonight to another episode because it's 2 in the morning. Today I'm going to be talking about a game that I actually missed the first time around when I was out of town in May 2014 when this game came out. The game in question is Wolfenstein: The New Order, and I just got around to playing it, unfortunately, in 2015, but nonetheless, I at least got to come around and play it. So today I'm going to talk about it really quickly. First thing I want to say is that the Wolfenstein: The New Order is a first-person shooter. The Wolfenstein is a long-running franchise, and it's well known because of Wolfenstein 3D, which is a game that basically made the first-person shooter genre pretty big. It was around that time, games like Duke Nukem 3D, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom were making their appearances on PC, and they really kind of renovated this whole genre of first-person shooting, run and gun, fast-paced action, lots of combat, over-the-top, exciting action. So Wolfenstein: The New Order is the latest in this long-running line of games. In it, you play as series protagonist BJ or William Blazkowicz, and your goal is to kill Nazis. And pretty simplistic, it holds true to the whole. It holds true to the series standard. BJ is constantly always fighting Nazis, and how does this game hold up? Well, first thing I want to say is that from what I've heard from a couple of other people that I know, Wolfenstein 2009, which was a reboot of the entire franchise, which is a prequel to this game actually. Well, this game is the sequel to it, but this game is a prequel to Wolfenstein: The New Order. Apparently, was published by Activision and a couple of different companies, ID Tech, I believe, and it featured a more like fantasy style plot, I want to say. I didn't play the game, so obviously I can't give you my first-hand experience, but this game is a little bit more realistic, I want to say, although there are still kind of places where it goes off the rails. It doesn't really have anything that from what I've heard people said about the original Wolfenstein. And it's made by an entirely different team. It's made by people called Machine Games. I think ID Tech also helped out, and it's published by Bethesda. So already the scope of the game is incredibly different. It's published by Bethesda instead of Activision. And it's a first-person shooter. You play as BJ, and your goal is basically in every level to go from start to finish. And obviously there's enemies littered all over the place. There's cutscenes. There's a lot of action, a lot of combat. And that's where the game really shines. Now, a good portion of the game does allow for stealth. There are, you can go stealth, you can go guns blazing, although at least a good portion of the early part of the game is pretty stealth based. And, there are a lot of parts in the earlier levels where you can run around and, you can run and gun and do stuff and use environment to your advantage and whatnot, but you can also stealth through it. You can throw throwing knives to insta-kill enemies. You can take down enemies from behind with your knife. You can use a suppressed pistol, so there's a lot of stuff you can do, and there's a decent variety between these two different play styles, and you can mix them however you want. Now, the end of the game does kind of ditch the stealth aspect for a more combat-oriented approach, which, you may or may not like that if you're a stealth fan, but the end of the game is kind of more combat-oriented. So I'll leave it up to you whether or not, you'll see. But regardless, the one thing I do want to say about this game and where it shines is not only the characters, but just the story of the game. The narrative of the game is incredibly well done. It's impeccable the way that they pull it off. And I would be remiss if I were not to praise this game for the setting, the concept, the narrative, the way that the gameplay progresses. I admit the beginning is a little bit rough to jump into. They kind of basically throw you immediately into the action. I don't know, how continuous this is with the last Wolfenstein game, but they throw you pretty much right into the action in the beginning. So once you get your bearings, once you understand the setting and the characters, you'll be good. You'll understand how things are working out. Great game, and I really want to stress that. The characters are strong. BJ is a likable guy. I mean, he keeps true to his, his basic backframe of a guy who wants to kill Nazis and, do what's best for the USA. He really stays true to that, but at the same time, he also has a lot of characterization to him. I really like him as a character. I really like the way that he just basically shines in this story, and he goes out and he explores this world completely taken over by the Nazis. Concept-wise, the game takes place in 1946, before jumping ahead to 1960. The Nazis win World War II, which is a drastic turning point in world history. And basically this entire game takes place in this alternate timeline where the Nazis have won World War II. And BJ, wakes up after, a 14-year coma right before he's about to die, and he finds himself in this world that's completely overrun with Nazis. Like, the Nazis own every corner of the world. The world's minorities are either imprisoned, dead, or being hunted. The Aryan race in the Nazi regime is just completely taking over everything and controlling from America to South America to to China to Japan, and nowhere in this world is safe. I believe that the last bastion of anything is in Africa. And BJ explores this 1960s Europe in a couple of linear levels where he basically does his best to stop this Nazi regime. And at every point in the game, the one thing that they do pretty well is also the atmosphere. The atmosphere of the game of BJ, basically, this one-man army versus an entire regime, worldwide regime, is really, really well done. I do like that idea that basically they're facing impossible odds, and I really, really like the feel about that. It's filling, it's satisfying, and it's well done. The gunplay, which is obviously the main meat of this game, is impeccable. This is what I want to call a first-person shooter that knows what it wants to be and has an overflowing soul. Like, it doesn't want to just be a generic cash-in. The gunplay is fluid. It's expertly well done. You can use basically just about every gun in the game that you pick up, whether it be the pistol, the assault rifle, the shotgun, can be dual-wielded, except for one weapon in particular, which is this high-tech laser cutter that you get, which can be used to destroy the environment. You can cut open like square holes and then walk through them in, like, say, chain link fences or certain graded surfaces or whatnot. You can do a bunch of cool stuff with that, and I really, really like that. Also, what this game does is it really emphasizes gore. It's a pretty gory game, pretty brutal. So you can, like, shotgun someone's head off. You can shotgun their legs or arm off. You can blow people to smithereens. You can really take it to the enemies, or take it to the Nazis, which is, I think, really fits with what BJ would want, and it really fits with the game. It really definitely, sets the game in its place. Now, my criticisms of the game are kind of few and far, but still there. One thing I want to say is this game is somewhat easy. Like, I didn't really die at all in this game. It's pretty easy to kind of breeze right through this game and not have any kind of problem with it and just, go from start to finish. The other thing I want to say is that there are some intermission missions, kind of funny, between the action at a couple of parts in the game. It's a little weird because they take up entire slots for missions, while the length of the game is still pretty good and about what I would want to put it at. There's like 3 or 4 missions out of the 16 that are just really not like missions. They're too short that I would even put them alongside some of the other missions. The alternative storyline and the alternative history is pretty well done. So I do like that about the game. What else? The Gunplay, I mean, obviously the gunplay gets a little bit repetitive, but I think there's enough guns and enough different types of enemies to really mix it up. You know, there's also platforming in there, there's a underwater level, but I feel like some of the differing parts of the game do kind of, you know, they're there, but they're too short. The stealth isn't too perfectly executed, it's still well done, and it's still sprinkled throughout the beginning of the campaign pretty well. The commander system, where if you do not kill a commander, the commanders will constantly radio for backup, is pretty cool. And I don't know, it's just some of the cutscenes. I mean, I like the way that they blend the cutscenes and the gameplay, but the thing about the cutscenes is that the cutscenes are pre-rendered and in third person, whereas the gameplay is in first person. And it'll just be like a sudden jerk, like at the start of every third-person cutscene. Like all of a sudden, you'll just be out of his body, and it'll be a pre-rendered cutscene, and it'll look a little weird, and then you'll come back into his body. And what I do like about it, at least, is that when you come back in, you know, he'll be doing exactly what he was doing in the cutscene. So the amount of detail that they put into this game is pretty good. And you know, I mean, just designing this whole backstory of a world where the Nazis won World War II is just incredible. And it's really well done, and I really like it. And when I sat down and I played this game for my first session, I honestly expected a generic first-person shooter, which is what you get a lot of these days when, you know, you have Call of Duty and all these other games, you know, have just completely overflowed the genre. Wolfenstein: The New Order is a first-person shooter not to be missed. And I know in a market filled with first-person shooters, it's kind of hard, you know, oh, well, there's 100 other ones that came out last year and the year before it. This is one not to miss. This is probably one of the best first-person shooters I've played. And I'm going to put it alongside a game like BioShock Infinite, a game that I really kind of enjoyed, a game that I felt really had a focus of what it wanted to be, and a game that was engrossing. Now, whether or not you want to compare, like BioShock Infinite, this game to the rest of its franchise, that's kind of up for debate. Because it does take a very drastically different turn. But I do like BJ, I do like the characterization, the gameplay is great, the storytelling feels really, really good about this game, and I really, really enjoy it. And this, honestly, is one of my top 5 from 2015, or 2014. And I would honestly consider putting it up there maybe for Game of the Year. You know, I have to run it off against a couple other games, you know, here and there. But it's probably, like, BioShock Infinite is what I would want to say is 2013's one of the best first-person shooters of 2013. This is 2014's definitive shooter. It's really, really well done. And the only another problem I do have with the game is the pickup system. Now, in most FPSs, in order to pick up stuff, you just basically walk over. It gets added to your inventory. You don't have to worry about it. This game, they decided to do things a little bit different. In this game, what they did is they just went ahead and they said that you're going to have to manually pick up every little thing you want. Now, you don't always have to be looking at it, but it gets annoying when you're in the middle of a gunfight and you're kind of running all over the place. You know, you're trying to slide from cover to cover because there is sliding, there is leaning. If you want, you can lean left, right, up, over something, and down underneath it. So that also really helps diversify the gameplay. But it's a little bit annoying when you're trying to run all over the place, and the game just kind of, it's annoying when you have to, like, oh, well, I passed this armor that I need, so I gotta reach out and pick up the armor. You know, you gotta go back and look at it and hover out of cover. It gets a little annoying having to manually pick up every little thing. Now, I can understand that collectibles obviously should be manual. At least the ammo should be automatic, you know, like that should be an automatic pickup kind of deal, at least on the lower difficulties or something like that. Especially at least on normal and maybe the difficulty above it. But this game is like, what I want to say is a sparkling, refreshing star amongst a sea that is increasingly overflowing with the same old stuff. So I'm going to give Wolfenstein: The New Order a 90 out of 100. It is a really good game. There's a few tidbits here and there. You know, maybe the length of it, you know, could have been a bit longer if they took out some of these intermission missions. It is a great throwback to the Wolfenstein series and a really good indication of something to come. Ending is really good. I really hope that they make a sequel off of it. And, I mean, what else can I say? I mean, it's a pretty satisfying, pretty overall well-done game. And I appreciate what they did for it. And I really hope You know, I mean, wow. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It was a fun experience, you know, compared to the usual FPS I come on. Oh, generic, you know, whatever. Give it a 70 and kind of, you know, slap it on the behind and throw it out. This game was basically 2014's Bioshock Infinite, and although in some ways I like it better than Infinite, uh, it doesn't exactly have enough sanding on a lot of the edges in order for it to kind of surpass Infinite in some cases. But I do prefer it to Infinite, even though it is a little bit flawed. So that's going to be it for the Bioshock Infinite. It's late. That's going to be it for the Wolfenstein The New Order review. I'm SpraynPray1000. This game rocks. Great throwback to old FPS gameplay and a blending of the new. So, Bethesda, I hope you stick around with the Wolfenstein franchise, and I hope you make another one in a couple of years. I really appreciate it. It was really fun. I know you'll never see it, but I just want to let you know I really like this game a lot. So, thank you, and I'll see you guys next time on The Verdict.